Hey there, this is Matt with State of Flux here with a review for Alien Romulus. This will be a spoiler review, so if you're looking for a non-spoiler review, I've done that also, and I will link that down below. But moving forward, we're entering spoiler territory. One last thing before we do so is I've just started a TikTok. So you can follow me at State of Flux 3938 on TikTok, and I'll link that down below as well. But from here on out, it's Alien Romulus and Alien entire franchise spoilers, because I will address kind of all the movies to some respect, because this movie cribs a lot from most of them. So yeah, if you watched my review, I gave a pretty negative one, which seems kind of weird and out of place considering how relatively good this movie is. It is, much like the original Alien, insanely technically well made. The technical achievements that they got on screen are really pretty damn impressive. You have excellent art direction. You have really strong cinematography. You have an incredible cast led by David Jonsson, Cailee, Spaeny, and Isabela, Merced, the three of which completely hold their own amongst some of the performances across the entirety of the franchise. They're all that good, particularly Spaeny and Jonsson. And this is something that also intrigued me, because the characters in this, and the motivation and what gets them off the planet and onto the Romulus ship, or satellite, or whatever it is really compelling. This is a good set of characters. The first act of this movie is incredibly strong, so much so that I thought I was watching the best Alien film. But then the Ridley Scott of it all, I think, really came into play, and I felt like watching this film that Fede Alvarez was not given full license to make the movie he wanted, because he kept having to shoehorn things in from the Ridley Scott Alienverse. And that comes with its own sets of problems. But the first time this happened, and they say they do it in terms of fan service, but I really don't know if I buy that, is the return of Ian Holm as the android. This time not playing Ash, but a completely separate android named, I was going to say Bishop, it's not him, named Rook. Named so as a nod to Bishop, playing along with the whole chess thing. I don't know why that had to be Ian Holm. In simple terms, it didn't have to be Ian Holm. It really took me out of the movie. I don't know why that wasn't written to be just another android and get an actual actor to pull it off. As is, this kind of rubbed me the wrong way for a multitude of reasons. It makes it harder to believe that if there's multiple droids with this same look, that look exactly like Ian Holm does, it makes it harder to believe that people who work for the company, A, don't know this, and B, have never come across another one. It asks me to suspend my disbelief even more than I already am watching a movie about aliens. And the whole android aspect of Ash being the true villain and a company man and all that kind of stuff from the first Alien, if you go back and watch my review, I will link, I guess, that entire... I've reviewed all the Alien movies, is my least favorite aspect of Alien. Now, if you're watching Alien for the first time, the whole Ash is an android thing plays kind of weird and completely out of nowhere. You're watching a horror film about an alien on board a ship, essentially Halloween in space, and then suddenly there's robots, and that always has been something that kind of, like, jabbed at me, that I didn't dig. And then when you watch the excellent 2003 documentaries that came out with the Alien quadrilogy, you found out that Dan O'Bannon, when writing the screenplay, never included this character to be a robot, and that was something that was added into the story by Scott and company when developing Alien. And it strikes me as weird because it was never meant to be so, you know what I mean? And I will admit, the android element of Alien eventually becomes pretty damn compelling, with characters such as Bishop, Walter, and David, and to a lesser extent Call. But there is an interesting element to it. However, the aspect that I like the least is Ash, because in that individual film, it just comes out of nowhere. There's nothing to set it up, and you're not even revealed that he is a robot until his head gets knocked off. And you're left looking there like, what? Is he an alien? What's going on? And then you have to have Yaphet Kotto explain it to the audience, being like, Ash is a goddamn robot? And it's just a line that feels like it's there because the audience isn't going to get it otherwise. And when you have to put that much explanation into something, it's frustrating. As you can see, my frustrations with that first film reemerged with the mere presence of a look-alike to Ash. And I say a look-alike because this is not, in fact, Ian Holm. Ian Holm passed away in 2020. And even though they got familial licensing to bring him back for this film, they did it in an unusual way. They built an animatronic Ash, and it seems very obvious that it's an animatronic, and this kind of works because the last time you see Ash, he is animatronic first, when, like, Yaphet Parker, is flame-throwing him. And so you have the not Ash look-alike Rook, who is an animatronic of an actor who has long since passed away, brought to life through the likeness he had in a film from 1979, that is also obviously a animatronic, so they deep fake Ian Holm's 1979 face onto this animatronic, and it just doesn't look great. It just looks super weird, and it visually takes you out of the movie. Like, 10 years from now when we're watching this is going to be the moment that we're pointing to where we're like, ooh, I don't know if that holds up, in a really fugly way. Like, now people are, it's really keen to, like, turn to Alien 3 or Alien Resurrection and be like, the CGI aliens look real bad. And sure, in Resurrection they kind of do. Fun fact, there's only one CGI shot in Alien 3. So a lot of what they're talking about is they really don't like the rod puppeting that they've done, which admittedly is composited a little weird. I'm getting off topic again. Alien Romulus. It's hard to stay on topic when a film is so hearkening to other films in the franchise and not allowing itself to immerse itself to be a film on its own right. And that's, I think, why I keep going on to other tangents. When I've had conversations with people who have seen this movie, they're having a similar experience, and that's because this film has no identity of its own. It does for the first act, but then with this singular moment, the introduction of Rook, and bringing back the exact same component from Alien, so now you have the same bad guy that you can look at outside of the Alien, and it's frustrating and it's problematic, and it also begs even more questions. Like, if the company got a hold of the Alien by capturing the meteorite frozen alien from the first movie, like, why did they need it for Aliens? We're going to come around to this later on, so hold on to that thought. Alright, diving back in. The facehuggers emerge, and the facehuggers, like in the trailers, are what compelled me the most to want to see the movie, but then as I was watching it, it does kind of bother me a twinge, just in the sense that they don't act like any facehuggers we've ever seen before. Now, you could argue that these are organically grown facehuggers. I believe, at least when they're breaking out, it looks like they're the ones David had put into the little thing at the end of Alien Covenant. So this may be them having grown, and that's why they have more scorpion-like tails and stuff like that. I'm sure this will get all fleshed out for an inevitable sequel, because this movie made all the monies. And the alien itself is behaving a little more scorpion-like. The tail of the facehuggers and the alien is sharper and seems to be much more of the threat of the beast that we've never really seen before. Yeah, in the first movie, the alien uses its tail a couple times, and in Cameron's screenplay for Aliens, it's described as a scorpion and doing paralyzing jabs to people, but that never really made it to fruition. Again, it's a recycled idea from a different movie that they're plopping into this one. And once the aliens kind of emerge, there doesn't seem to be a lot of the xenomorph. Like, yeah, you get some really great hero shots of it, and the thing is scary, and the movie is very atmospheric and scary when it's committed to being that. I also like that it has a more of a slow burn quality to it that a lot of the other Alien franchise films have not done, especially post Alien 3. But there's really not a ton of xenomorph activity in the film. To the point where I was wanting more, but not in a good way of like, oh man, that stuff was so cool, I can't wait, I wish there was more. Like you got with Heath Ledger's Joker, it was more just like, I didn't get enough of it, and I would have liked more, which is like a difference, right? But moving on, the middle act is pretty rudimentary alien stuff. It feels almost Alien Resurrection, where there's just a lot of stuff going on, and you're like, I guess this is happening now, and you just kind of go with it, except better executed than that movie was. Then we get to the third act, and the third act has the Rain character realize that Andy was left behind. Andy's an android, by the way. Get it? Andy, the android. He's left behind, so she has to go back and get him. And where I said before that this was something pretty derivative that we've seen before, this is literally the same ending as Alien had, where Ripley, for whatever reason, needs to go get Oscar the cat. Or it's the ending from Aliens, where Ripley, very justifiably, needs to go rescue this little girl, Newt, who is the posit of her daughter Amanda, who passed away during her time away from the story. I was able to forgive Aliens a little more than I was able to forgive this film for committing to the same base premise. Like, when it started happening, I was like, I mean, I get it, but I feel like this is just you shoehorning a need for her to get, like, catharsis by shooting a bunch of aliens without finding an organic way to tell that story. And you can use it as a guise of, oh, it's fan service, we're giving people what they want. It's a nod to the original two movies, the good ones. And I think that's how a lot of people see it, but I just saw it as a false, like, manufacturing of a situation that didn't necessarily need to be there. A better writer could have gotten you that same cathartic move without having her have to go back into the hive to get it. I shouldn't say it. He's an android. To get Andy. That being said, I'm dragging the film again a lot. I should really talk about Andy for a minute. Andy was the most compelling aspect of the first act of the movie. And the moment he turns sort of heel when he gets corrupted by the Rook, like, little data chip thing, is also where the movie started losing me. But when he makes that commitment to disengage from that as she takes it from him, and he's allowed to be himself once more, that's a much, like, that, then I was like, okay, I get it. And then you kind of have that wonder, like, was he fully corrupted? Is he better now? Or is he going to align with, like, it did make for some drama. If that had been the weight of the film, I think it would have been a much better movie. And yet, at the start of the third act, we have Rook explain what was happening on Romulus, which was that they shoehorn the plot of Prometheus with the black goo that started it all into the film. And this is where I really felt that Ridley Scott's fingers were at play in the screenplay. Because the way the film reads, that was never an element at play prior to this moment. And when it happened, I was just like, must we? I swear there was an interview like a year and a half ago where Fede Alvarez had a conversation with Ridley Scott. He said in an interview that he had a conversation with Ridley Scott where he respected those Alien prequels, but he didn't have any use for them for his movie, and so that was going to like quietly ignore the existence of those. This completely refutes that quote, if I'm reading the right one. I guess I could be confusing it with the Noah Hawley Alien Earth TV show. I'm not sure, but the fact that Prometheus is brought directly into this film, and Ridley Scott seems to have had an issue with the fact that he never made Aliens, the sequel to Alien. He has been kind of vocal about the fact that he wished he had been the one to do the sequel because he wouldn't have done it like James Cameron. And I think it kind of bothers him that James Cameron's movie is A, as good as it is, but B, as successful and talked about and loved as it is. In the same vein, there are people like me that think Aliens is superior to Alien, and I think that's something that his own hubris can't handle, because he believes himself to be the superior author of the Alien franchise. And he does this by doubling down in Prometheus and Alien Covenant to make it so that aliens can never really happen. If David created the biology that allowed for the alien to exist, there is no need for a queen alien. The queen alien can't exist, and this movie continues that by having a whole hive of aliens, yet there is no queen, or any eggs for that matter. They are able to reproduce in a different way, a different capacity. And then along with that, in this final act of the film, you get several callbacks to Alien that they're going to call as callbacks by having lines like, "Get away from her, you bitch," which is the most out-of-nowhere line in the world that does not even make sense in context of that scene. That when you watch it, it steals the thunder from what Aliens would be if you're watching them chronologically, which you know people in the future will do, so that he's peeling back the layers of the onion that is Aliens to try and steal it away and make it so that Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection don't happen. And that the true sequel to Alien is Alien Romulus. And to his credit, if you were to watch Alien and not know about aliens, and you were to watch and say you really like Alien, and then you watch a sequel to Alien as Alien Romulus or Aliens, this film, Romulus, feels like a much more connected film to that first movie. It feels like a more organic sequel to Alien than Aliens does, which completely changes genre, changes tone, changes color palette, changes execution, and the way it executes character. And so the thing that we find compelling about Aliens as hardcore fans of that second film aren't necessarily the same qualities this film has, which is purely aesthetic, which I think a lot of the people who love Alien, it's mostly based on its aesthetic and the tone and execution of that tone that it evokes in the viewer. So when you have lines like, "Get away from her, you bitch," that is just trying to dismantle what Aliens is. I could be reading this wrong, but I really don't think I am. I think this is Ridley Scott's strong-holding through his producerial capacity to make it so Aliens isn't a thing anymore. And if we continue on with the Alien films, if this movie gets a sequel, I think that might be the case. But we're not even to the elephant in the room. At the point with which "Get away from her, you bitch" was said, I was like, I think that with that singular line, I went from being like, I guess this movie is okay to being like, I don't know if I'm a fan of this movie. I don't know if I can recommend it. But I was still like listing more like it's okay, a middle of the road kind of movie. It's certainly better than some Aliens, but not better than certainly not better than others. And that was when the last act happened. The last act, the surprise act that most of these Alien films have, you have a conclusive third act that springs forward into a surprise act that's a micro act. In the first film, it was Ripley and the alien on board the escape pod. In Aliens, it's the arrival of the Queen to the Sulaco. In Alien Resurrection, it's the revelation of Bishop 2, or the Bishop Creator, or whatever. In Alien Resurrection, it was the birth of the newborn. In this film, it's the birth of the newborn. If you're gonna crib from any Alien movie, cribbing from Alien Resurrection is certainly a choice. Wow! Was that a choice? Now, I will maintain that the execution of what the newborn looked like in his new Slender Man form is admittedly creepier and better photographed than Alien Resurrection. But I don't think it works as thematically well, because it's not tied into any semblance of character. It's tied into this loose running thread that's open from the end of Prometheus. If you've never seen Prometheus, this ending will ring a little hollow. If you have seen Prometheus, maybe you have a connective tissue to it that works a little better. But truthfully, I think the whole examination and continuation of motherhood as established in Aliens and then continued to some very minute extent in Alien Resurrection was executed better than in this. So outside of its aesthetic, again, thematically this conclusion is bumblefuck weird, man. Like, I don't know what on earth they were thinking. And to have it, like, it's photographed the same way, it's just tinted dark instead of warmly, but Alien Resurrection's problems across the board is with how it's photographed and its execution. The script itself is fine. It's execution that's terrible. This film is the reverse of that, where its execution and its film is, and its technical makeup is great. It's its execution, or it's its screenplay that is moderate at best and pretty damn awful when you get to this conclusion. They kill it in the same fucking way. Like, if you're gonna give it to us again, kill it a different way. The fact that it's, again, the acid spills, this time it's like placenta acid, and the thing gets sucked through the hull of the ship, exactly like in the previous one, and it was sucked through like a window in the ship because of acid that ripped a hole through it. I was just like, I got audibly upset, and the person I was watching it with like did the whole Leonardo DiCaprio meme of like, this is from Alien Resurrection! And even he, who loves every movie ever, was very upset. And so, like, he, for, like, context, ended up thinking the movie is fine. He gives a soft recommendation, but he was admittedly disappointed with the movie, especially the climax of it. But I could not reconcile the fact that if you're gonna rip off another movie, to rip off a movie within its own franchise in the exact same way, only gender flipping it as the only difference to it, and I guess changing the visual tone of the scene, and then killing it the same way, and shooting it the same way. Like, I just was like, how can a movie this creative, technically, be this lazy, like, in its narrative? I cannot understand that, and I could not, like, reconcile that. So when the credits finally hit, I was just left angered that I had an amazing first act that I still look back at fondly and can talk about the qualities of this film and the characters, to then have a movie that just kind of hits the beats of the franchise until it cribs the beats of the franchise. And I'm left with my head shaking. This is a movie of what could have beens that illustrates to me more than anything that Ridley Scott needs to step away from this franchise. If he is going to continue his involvement with it and shoehorn his ideas that few people genuinely care about for Prometheus, I have no interest until he is off of this franchise to continue visiting it. I don't even know if I'm going to watch the Noah Hawley one, because he is loosely tied to the Scott-free production of it all. Until Scott's not doing these movies, I'm not really interested in what the Alien franchise has to offer, because what it's offering us is convoluted, faux philosophical concepts that it is incapable of executing, because the films aren't even concerned with ruminating on the questions it's asking or providing answers to them. But it's also just constantly regurgitating the same shit over and over again, and why do you want to watch that? I haven't been this angered since I watched Rise of Skywalker, from a movie that is void of creativity. I've certainly watched movies that have upset me before, but this also got me to re-examine, I've been hitting hard against Ridley Scott, because when you're watching the movie, it feels like Fede Alvarez is a director for hire for Ridley Scott's execution of a franchise that he got pulled from because people didn't respond well to his two Alien prequels. And so, re-examining Fede Alvarez's career, I liked Evil Dead. I have the stance that there's no bad Evil Dead movie, but I think the worst one is his remake. It's still very good, but it is probably the weakest entry in the 6 property franchise between the 5 movies and the TV show. After that, he did Don't Breathe, which is good enough, but it also is just kind of a soft ripoff of Wes Craven film The People Under the Stairs, just with the villain, instead of being Reagan politics, being a rapey blind man who will be sequelized as a hero in a second film. And then Alvarez also wrote, though he didn't direct, but he produced and wrote the 2022 Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, which I think is the worst of that franchise. And that's saying something. It was the worst movie I saw in 2022, without question. And it's also the second time he did something where he made a movie too late to the party. My biggest criticism when I saw Evil Dead in 2013 was that this came out 12, or not even 12 months, it was 10 months after Cabin in the Woods, which is a movie that kind of dismantles the ability to tell an Evil Dead-like story, because it shows you and exposes all the elements to the core concepts within. And then 1 month after the release of 2022's Scream, which is a firm stab at the Legacy sequel, he does his faux Legacy sequel with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it was terrible. And now he directs this film, which is not good, void of really any original idea, as the 3 previous movies I just mentioned all are. They're all retellings of a different story. Sure, Don't Breathe is guised as an original one, but it's really, I challenge you to watch People Under the Stairs and that movie back to back. The frameworks of the films are shockingly similar. They just take out the urban element and the Reagan element and pump in modern shit and a blind rapist. And I'm just like, I don't know that I actually like his work. Like, he's made a couple movies that I think are fine, but he's also made 2 movies that I find deeply offensive now, considering how good of a filmmaker he is. And that's real disappointing. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this movie. If you're a fan of the first Alien movie, you will probably walk away of this one pretty satisfied. And when I say that, let me recant a bit. If the first Alien is your favorite Alien movie, you are going to walk out of this film probably pretty satisfied. Or at least think it's better than most of the Alien franchise. If you're a fan of James Cameron's Aliens as your favorite film, or have some criticisms towards Ridley Scott's view on the Alien franchise, you're probably going to have a hard time with this movie, as I did. I will have a full ranking video in about 2 days, and I ask that you watch that because there's a couple of hot takes in there, including some stuff where a lot of people have it real low on the list are some of my favorite Alien movies, and some of people's favorite Alien movies are pretty low on my list. So I am encouraging you all to watch, and I also want you to give me your definitive ranking of the Alien franchise in that video. But until then, thanks for watching my long-winded rant. I had a lot to say, and it was so hard to just not blurt it all out in the non-spoiler video, because a lot of the criticisms I have are deeply ingrained in spoilers of this film and the franchise as a whole. And so it's nice to, even if nobody watches this, I got it off my chest. But if you watch to the end, thank you for doing so. Let me know what you thought of this film in the comments down below. Did you really like the film? Do you find me completely off base, or are you in alignment? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, follow me on TikTok. Have a good one. Peace.